You know exactly what you need to do, but something invisible keeps holding you back. Day after day, you promise yourself that tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow, you'll finally take that decisive action. Tomorrow, you'll break through. But tomorrow comes, and nothing changes. The goals you've set, the dreams you've nurtured, the person you know you can become, all remain frustratingly out of reach. What if I told you that one of history's most influential success philosophers discovered a habit so simple, yet so powerful, that it allowed him to overcome every mental block he encountered? A habit that transformed not only his life, but the lives of countless others who applied it. The same habit that separated the truly successful from those who merely dreamed of success. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal this deceptively simple practice that Napoleon Hill, the man who spent years studying over 500 of the world's most successful people, used to break through his own mental barriers and help others do the same. This isn't complex psychology or some new age visualization technique. It's a practical, immediately applicable habit that you can start using today to dismantle the invisible walls that have been containing your potential. Most people live their entire lives inside a prison they never realize exists. This prison has no physical walls, no bars, no armed guards, yet it's more confining than any cell could ever be. It's a prison built of thoughts, beliefs, and mental patterns that have been reinforced day after day, year after year, until they become invisible to the person trapped within them. Napoleon Hill discovered something profound during his decades of research into the science of success. Mental blocks aren't random obstacles that appear in our path. They're systematically created by our own minds through habitual patterns of thought. The most dangerous prison, he found, is the one you don't know you're in. Look around right now at your life. The job you have, the relationships you maintain, the level of health you experience, the amount in your bank account, none of these are accidents. They are the direct manifestations of your predominant thoughts and beliefs, many of which operate completely below your conscious awareness. Hill interviewed Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, and hundreds of other world-changing individuals. What separated them wasn't just intelligence, or resources, or luck. It was their ability to recognize and systematically dismantle the mental blocks that would have kept ordinary people stuck in mediocrity. What invisible barriers have been quietly dictating the boundaries of your life? What thoughts have you accepted as truth that are nothing more than self-imposed limitations? The first step toward freedom is recognizing that the walls exist. Ask yourself, if these mental barriers suddenly disappeared overnight, what would you do tomorrow that you're not doing today? The gap between that answer and your current reality, that's the exact measure of your invisible prison. You've read the books. You've watched the videos. You've attended the seminars. You know more about success, productivity, and personal development than 99% of the population. Yet something strange happens. The more you learn, the wider the gap seems to grow between what you know and what you actually do. Napoleon Hill called this phenomenon knowledge without action, and he identified it as one of the most insidious forms of self-deception. It creates the illusion of progress while actually keeping you perfectly still. Each new book, course, or guru provides a temporary hit of inspiration and a comforting feeling that you're moving forward, when in reality, you're simply accumulating information you never implement. The uncomfortable truth is that most people use learning as a sophisticated form of procrastination. It feels productive. It feels responsible. But it's actually a clever mental block disguised as self-improvement. Hill observed this pattern repeatedly during his research. Countless individuals who claimed they wanted success were constantly getting ready to get ready. They were perpetually preparing but never performing, always planning but never producing, forever strategizing but never starting. This isn't just a minor inefficiency in your personal operating system. It's a fundamental malfunction that prevents you from translating knowledge into results. And it's one that Napoleon Hill himself struggled with until he developed the simple habit we'll discuss shortly. Right now, in this moment, you stand at a critical decision point. Will you continue to consume information as a substitute for action? Or will you finally break the cycle that has kept you trapped in the gap between knowing and doing? Everything you've learned is worthless unless it's applied. Knowledge without action isn't power, it's just potential. What really happens when you set a goal and then fail to follow through? Napoleon Hill's research uncovered something fascinating. It's not laziness, lack of motivation, or insufficient willpower that stops most people. It's something far more fundamental. The real source of mental resistance is the subconscious mind's programming for self-preservation. Your conscious mind might be excited about changing, growing, and achieving new goals. But your subconscious mind, which runs approximately 95% of your behavior, is designed to maintain the status quo at all costs. This isn't a design flaw, it's a feature. Throughout human evolution, consistency and predictability meant survival. Dramatic change represented potential danger. Your brain is literally wired to resist the very changes you consciously want to make. Hill discovered this principle through his extensive interviews with successful people and his own personal struggles. The greatest barrier to achievement isn't external obstacles, but internal resistance. Your mind creates elaborate justifications, distractions, and fears, not to harm you, but to protect you from the discomfort of change. This is why motivation alone fails. Willpower inevitably depletes, and why most goal-setting exercises lead nowhere. You're attempting to use conscious tools to overcome a subconscious program. It's like trying to dig a hole in concrete with a plastic spoon. The people Hill studied who achieved extraordinary success weren't born without this resistance mechanism. They simply discovered specific methods to bypass it, reprogram it, or use it to their advantage. And the simplest, most effective method was the daily habit Hill himself adopted and taught to thousands. What automatic response does your mind generate when you think about taking bold action toward your goals? Pay attention to the thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations that arise. That's not random mental chatter. It's your subconscious preservation system activating to maintain your comfortable, familiar limitations. Are you ready to short-circuit this system once and for all? I'll start my diet tomorrow. I'll begin saving money next month. I'll launch my business once I have more time. I'll have that difficult conversation when the timing is better. The concept of tomorrow has derailed more potential success stories than perhaps any other mental trap. Napoleon Hill found this pattern so prevalent that he devoted an entire chapter to it in his work. He called it the alibi of tomorrow, the mind's clever way of maintaining the illusion of commitment while indefinitely postponing action. The problem isn't just procrastination. It's the dangerous self-deception that comes with it. Each time you tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, you get the psychological satisfaction of having committed to change without experiencing any of the discomfort that actual change requires. It's a perfect mental block. It feels good in the moment while ensuring nothing ever changes. Hill documented case after case of individuals who spent decades in this loop, always on the verge of breakthrough, always just about to take action, always planning to begin tomorrow. Their potential remained forever unrealized, not because they lacked ability, but because they fell for the most insidious lie the mind tells, that there will always be another chance later. The successful people Hill studied shared a common trait. They developed an almost visceral aversion to postponement. They recognized that tomorrow is the graveyard of dreams and possibilities. They understood at a deep level that there is no tomorrow, there is only a series of todays in which we either act or don't act. This moment, right now, as you read these words, is the only moment guaranteed to you. The actions you take in this moment, not the ones you plan to take in some imagined future, are what will determine your destiny. The simple habit Napoleon Hill discovered addresses this precise point of failure. What important action have you been mentally scheduling for tomorrow? What dream have you kept on life support through the promise of future action? The hard truth is that tomorrow is an illusion that keeps you permanently trapped in the waiting room of life. After years of studying the world's most accomplished individuals and struggling with his own mental blocks, Napoleon Hill discovered a habit so fundamental yet so powerful that he called it the master key to success. It wasn't complex or mystical. In fact, its simplicity is precisely what makes it so effective. The habit is this: write down your specific goal or decision, and then immediately take one concrete action, no matter how small, toward its achievement. That's it. But within this simple practice lies a profound psychological mechanism that bypasses the mental blocks we've discussed. Hill called it the principle of definiteness of purpose, coupled with immediacy of action. He observed that the act of writing creates clarity and commitment in the conscious mind, while immediate action sends a powerful signal to the subconscious that this isn't just another fleeting thought or temporary motivation. When Thomas Edison faced seemingly insurmountable challenges in developing the electric light bulb, he would write down the specific problem and immediately take some action toward solving it, even if that action was simply arranging his workspace or examining one more potential filament material. This habit kept him moving forward through 10,000 failures. Henry Ford would write down his manufacturing goals each morning and then immediately walk the factory floor to take or direct some action toward their achievement. This practice helped him revolutionize industrial production despite having limited formal education. The power doesn't come from the size of the action, but from breaking the pattern of delay between decision and implementation. It's about collapsing the gap between knowing and doing to nearly zero. Most people make decisions and then wait for motivation, perfect circumstances, or some undefined right time to act. The people Hill studied made decisions and then acted immediately, regardless of whether they felt ready or the conditions seemed perfect. This habit works because it fundamentally changes your relationship with action itself. It transforms action from something you do after extensive preparation to something that is inseparable from the decision-making process. Decision and action become a single, unified event. Are you willing to commit right now to implementing this habit in your own life? Not tomorrow, not after you finish reading, but in this very moment, making the mental commitment that from this point forward, every significant decision will be followed by immediate action. The moment you attempt to implement the Napoleon Hill habit of written goals followed by immediate action, you'll notice something strange. Your mind will fight you with unexpected intensity. Understanding why this happens is crucial to overcoming it. Your brain is designed to conserve energy whenever possible. Mental and physical exertion requires valuable resources. So your brain has evolved sophisticated mechanisms to minimize unnecessary effort. Any new habit, no matter how beneficial, represents a threat to this energy conservation system. Hill discovered that the resistance to this specific habit is particularly strong because it strikes at the very heart of the mental blocks that keep people stuck. It threatens the brain's carefully constructed system of procrastination, self-doubt, and comfortable limitation. When you write down a clear goal, you eliminate the vagueness that your brain uses to avoid commitment. When you follow that written goal with immediate action, you short-circuit the delay mechanism that your brain uses to prevent change. You're essentially hacking the two primary mental blocks in a single practice. The resistance manifests in various forms. Sudden fatigue when you sit down to write your goals. A flood of more important tasks that need attention. Unexpected doubts about whether your goal is the right one. Or physical discomfort that wasn't present moments before. Hill documented these resistance patterns across hundreds of individuals. The successful ones recognized this resistance for what it was, not a sign to stop, but confirmation they were pushing against the very barriers that had held them back. Andrew Carnegie, one of Hill's primary mentors, told him, "When you feel the strongest urge to quit, you are often just one step away from a major breakthrough." This insight applies perfectly to the practice of written goals and immediate action. The resistance you feel when implementing this habit is directly proportional to its potential impact on your life. This explains why such a simple habit can remain so difficult to implement consistently. It's not just a habit. It's a direct challenge to your brain's operating system. But this also explains why those who persist with it experience such dramatic transformations. Will you allow temporary discomfort to keep you from the very practice that could free you from permanent limitation? Or will you recognize the resistance as evidence that you're finally addressing the root cause of your mental blocks? There's a hidden benefit to the Napoleon Hill habit that goes beyond breaking mental blocks. It creates a phenomenon Hill called the momentum miracle, the tendency for small, consistent actions to create accelerating returns over time. Most people vastly overestimate what they can accomplish in a day and dramatically underestimate what they can achieve in a year of consistent action. Hill's research showed that success rarely comes from dramatic leaps, but almost always from the compound effect of small, daily actions driven by clearly written goals. The science behind this is fascinating. Each time you write down a goal and take immediate action, you create a small neurological victory. Your brain releases dopamine, which not only feels good, but strengthens the neural pathways involved in both decision-making and action-taking. Over time, this builds what neurologists now call success momentum, the tendency for productive action to become easier and more automatic with repetition. Hill documented this effect in the lives of countless successful individuals. Inventor Alexander Graham Bell wrote in his journals about how the habit of immediate action on written goals created a momentum of mind that carried him through periods of failure and frustration in developing the telephone. The retail magnate F.W. Woolworth credited his success to writing down specific expansion goals each morning, and then immediately taking one action toward opening a new store, a practice he maintained for decades as he built his empire from nothing. What makes this especially powerful is that the momentum works in both directions. Each day you delay action after setting a goal, you strengthen the neural pathways of procrastination and weaken those associated with achievement. This is why Hill considered the habit not just beneficial but essential. It reverses the negative momentum that has been building throughout years of hesitation and delayed action. Most importantly, the momentum miracle makes the process increasingly effortless over time. The very habit that might feel challenging today will become your natural way of operating within weeks of consistent practice. The mental blocks that once seemed insurmountable will dissolve, not through struggle, but through the gentle, yet persistent pressure of daily written goals, followed by immediate action. Are you willing to trust this process, even before you see dramatic results? The momentum miracle operates quietly beneath the surface, long before its effects become visible to others. Those who maintain faith in the process are the ones who ultimately experience its full transformative power. There's a crucial distinction that Napoleon Hill observed among the people he studied, a distinction that explains why some achieved extraordinary results while others remained stuck despite appearing busy and productive. It's the difference between motion and action. Motion is everything that looks like progress but doesn't produce a result. Researching, planning, organizing, strategizing, learning, discussing. These activities feel productive and can even be necessary in small doses, but they don't directly generate outcomes. Action, by contrast, is behavior that directly produces a result or moves you measurably closer to your goal. Making sales calls, writing pages, building products, having crucial conversations, shipping work, these activities create tangible outcomes and generate feedback that leads to growth. Hill discovered that unsuccessful people typically spend 80% of their time in motion and 20% in action. The extraordinarily successful people he studied had precisely the opposite ratio to 20% motion and 80% action. This single reversal accounted for massive differences in results. The habit of writing down specific goals and taking immediate action forces you to distinguish between motion and action. The written goal clarifies what result you're actually seeking. The immediate action requirement pushes you to identify what behavior will directly produce or advance that result. This distinction becomes even more important in today's world of endless digital distraction and information overload. It's never been easier to confuse motion with action. To spend hours scrolling through success quotes on social media while calling it research or motivation. Hill's habit cuts through this confusion. It demands specificity about outcomes and immediacy in producing them. When you commit to this practice, you suddenly see with perfect clarity how much of your previous productivity was merely motion disguised as progress. Charles Schwab, who became the highest paid executive in America during Hill's era, told him, "I don't pay my executives for activity. I pay them for results." When you implement the habit of written goals and immediate action, you begin holding yourself to the same standard, evaluating your days not by busyness but by concrete advancement toward specific outcomes. Take a hard look at yesterday's activities. How much was motion and how much was action? If you're honest with yourself, this single awareness could completely transform how you invest your time and energy going forward. Are you ready to shift the ratio in favor of results-producing action? At the heart of every mental block lies a simple truth that Napoleon Hill discovered through his research. People will do almost anything to avoid short-term discomfort, even if it means sacrificing long-term fulfillment and success. The habit of writing specific goals and taking immediate action works, precisely because it forces you to confront and move through discomfort rather than around it. This is not a side effect of the habit, it is the primary mechanism by which it creates transformation. Hill studied the psychology of achievement long before modern neuroscience. Yet, he intuitively understood what researchers now confirm: the brain's preference for comfort over growth is hardwired. The path of least resistance is the default setting of human behavior. Breaking mental blocks requires deliberately choosing the path of temporary discomfort. When you write down a clear goal, you create discomfort by eliminating all the vague, non-committal thinking that feels safe but produces nothing. When you take immediate action, you create discomfort by facing the possibility of failure, judgment, or discovering that the task is harder than anticipated. The successful individuals Hill studied weren't born with a higher pain tolerance or less fear than others. They simply developed the habit of moving toward discomfort rather than away from it when that discomfort stood between them and their goals. Theodore Roosevelt, whom Hill interviewed extensively, embodied this principle. Roosevelt transformed himself from a sickly, asthmatic child into a robust leader through deliberate exposure to physical challenges. He applied the same approach to mental challenges, writing down political and personal goals each morning and immediately taking action regardless of how uncomfortable the next step might be. This willingness to face discomfort didn't make these individuals fearless. It made them courageous. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. The Napoleon Hill habit is, at its core, a daily practice of courage. The courage to clarify exactly what you want and to take immediate steps toward it, regardless of how you feel in the moment. Ask yourself honestly, what uncomfortable action have you been avoiding that, if taken consistently, would transform your results? What conversation, task, or change have you been postponing because the short-term discomfort feels too intense? That precise point of avoidance is where your breakthrough begins. Today, right now, you face a choice. Will you continue prioritizing momentary comfort over lasting achievement? Or will you embrace the temporary discomfort that comes with growth? This decision, more than any other factor, will determine whether you remain trapped by mental blocks or break through to new levels of accomplishment. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must decide who they really are and what they truly stand for. Napoleon Hill called this the defining decision. The point where you stop merely wishing for a different life and start creating it through consistent, purposeful action. The habit of writing specific goals and taking immediate action is more than just a productivity technique. It's a declaration of identity. It's you deciding, once and for all, that you will no longer be the kind of person who postpones action, makes excuses, or surrenders to mental blocks. Hill discovered through his research that this defining decision was present in the life of every truly successful person he studied. Sometimes it came after a dramatic failure or loss. Sometimes it emerged gradually through consistent application of success principles. But, in every case, there was a clear before and after, a point where the individual stopped being a spectator in their own life and became the primary creative force within it. For Hill himself, this moment came after years of studying success while struggling to implement what he was learning. The gap between his knowledge and his results became so painful that he made a commitment to himself. He would write down his most important goal each morning and take at least one concrete action toward it before doing anything else, no matter what. This single habit, maintained over time, transformed him from a struggling writer into one of the most influential success philosophers in history. It wasn't the only factor in his achievement, but it was the foundation that made everything else possible. The decision before you now is the same one Hill faced, the same one every successful person throughout history has confronted. Will you commit to this simple but transformative habit not just today, but every day? Will you decide that written goals, followed by immediate action, is not something you try, but something you embody as a fundamental aspect of who you are? This isn't about perfection. You will have days when you fall short. But what separates those who achieve from those who merely dream is the ability to return to this core practice again and again, regardless of temporary setbacks or failures. The mental prison you've been living in wasn't built in a day, and it won't be dismantled in a day. But each time you write down a clear goal and take immediate action toward it, you remove another bar from your cell. Eventually, with enough consistent application of this habit, you'll look around and realize there are no walls left, only open space and unlimited possibility. The decision is yours. Not tomorrow, not when you feel more ready, but right now, in this moment. Who will you decide to be? We've now come full circle. You began reading with mental blocks holding you back from your true potential. You now possess the same simple but powerful habit that Napoleon Hill and countless successful individuals have used to break through those invisible barriers. Writing down specific goals and taking immediate action toward their achievement. This practice isn't magical thinking or wishful visualization. It's a practical psychological tool that aligns your conscious and subconscious mind toward a single purpose. Bypassing the mental resistance that has kept you stuck. It transforms vague intentions into concrete outcomes through the irresistible power of consistent, focused action. The invisible prison that has contained your potential can be dismantled, one written goal and one immediate action at a time. The gap between what you know and what you do can be closed through this daily practice of decisiveness and implementation. The pattern of postponement that has delayed your dreams can be broken by collapsing the time between decision and action to nearly zero. Napoleon Hill spent 25 years studying the principles of achievement, interviewing the most successful people of his era, and testing these concepts in his own life. From all that research emerged this fundamental truth: success is not primarily about talent, education, or circumstances. It's about the habits of thought and action that you practice daily. The simple habit you've learned today represents the distilled wisdom of Hill's life work. It's the master key that unlocks all other principles of achievement by getting you into immediate and sustained action toward your most important goals. So now you stand at a crossroads. On one path lies continued consumption of knowledge without application, endless preparation without performance, and the familiar comfort of potential never realized. On the other path lies the temporary discomfort and ultimate liberation that comes from written goals followed by immediate action. The choice you make in this moment, not tomorrow, not when circumstances are perfect, but right now, will echo through every dimension of your life. It will determine not just what you accomplish, but who you become. Will you remain imprisoned by invisible mental blocks that have held you back for years? Or will you begin, today, the process of dismantling those barriers through the consistent application of Napoleon Hill's most powerful habit? The transformation is waiting. The decision is yours. The time is now.